There, so before I begin, I just want to thank you for having me here today. And due to these difficult times, it's so unfortunate not to see you in person. I do see expressive concerns about a news article that had been published of a consumer that had a severe peanut allergy reaction to our energy byproducts. Now, in answering one of your first questions about how serious this allergy claim is, as the Chief Marketing Officer of Sweet Fruit Snacks, Say Snacks, it's important to recognize our main goals for our company, that is ensuring the best interests of our consumers. This could be a life or death situation, and it's important to take the most precautions necessary for ensuring the qualities have been met for our consumers. So today I'm going to describe a solution that I provide. So here I like to call it the OPR protocol. The OP stands for operations and the PR stands for public relations. So this involves two major steps. So the first step is through an operational inspection and through education. The second step is to maintaining good public relations. So through the solution that I will be explaining about, I will also be integrating the key concepts. The first key concept here is consumer protection, the second, efficacy claims, and third, the action plans or the scenario planning involved. So when we're talking about consumer protection, it's important to define what that is. So that is the practice of safeguarding a buyer goods and services and the public against unfair practices in the marketplace. So it's important to discuss the need for consumer protection, and that is to prevent the consumers through exploitation. So that's first the physical protection of consumers. The second is the unfair health and safety practices. And third is the protection from deceptive advertisement. And that is important to recognize all of these consumer protections. And through my solution I provided, I have two standpoints to discuss about. The first is through an operational standpoint. So ways that we can use for protection, consumer protection, is that we can educate our employees of the importance of operational inspections. That way we can help to protect our consumers and really reinforce these daily inspections so that the employees understand our values of our consumers and our products. We can also hire health and safety inspectors, which could be really beneficial to really reinforcing and making this a huge habit for our employees on an operational standpoint. Now, in terms of a public relations standpoint, we can provide workshops for unfair commercial practices, and we can also inform consumers and the employees of the consumers' rights. So here I have a diagram. This is, I like to call the flower diagram, to show the different petals in terms of the consumer's rights. So the first one here is the right to being protected. And that is important because consumers should have the right to feel that once they have this product, we will also be able to protect them and also suffice them based on their needs and their wants. The second petal we have is the right to be informed. So just like this news article that had been published, the other consumers may also have the right to be informed about this problem may have occurred to some of the people. And that is important that they are also informed about this and that we should take full rights and responsibility over this problem. The third is the right to being redressed, and the fourth is to be right to being assured. So it's important that if this problem has to happen, we are going to take full responsibility of it as they're being assured for it. And lastly is the right to being heard. So it's important that this consumer has voiced their concerns and we would gladly accept it, and because we want to recognize this as the end of the day, it is our main priority to make sure that the customers have the best interest at their expense of their needs. So when we talked about consumer protection, we also want to talk about the efficacy claims. So that is defined as producing a desired result in a way that could be maybe perhaps manipulation. So for example, we claim to have the most organic and healthy products, which is true and that's what we believe in. However, unfortunately in this case, someone has suffered a severe peanut allergy reaction. This causes a misleading advertisement and labeling, and that could lead of more unproductive environments, lower revenue, and poor efficiency levels, and that could lead to bankruptcy as our reputation has gone down a little bit. So here I have a diagram to show this. So as more efficacy claims are claimed to be true, therefore we have lower revenue as revenue becomes less. So that is through the y-axis is the number of claims, and the x-axis represents the number of the amount of revenue. So that's important to think of this through this correlation. So let's think assuming the other way around of this efficacy claim. Let's assume that this person that has talked about this claim might be false. Since this solution that I provided purposely is used for situations when this particular situation is assumed to be true, this could be a risk of efficacy claim if this may not be true. But it's also still important to be aware that of this situation in case if it's not being true, we can act upon it and think of it as a true situation. That way we can have good publicity and also people recognize our values for customers and that we truly dearly importantly emphasize these issues and because we prioritize our consumers the most. So now we've talked about the different efficacy claims that can be involved. Now I'll be explaining about the action plans and the scenario planning. So in answering one of your questions about how would Sweet Fruit should handle this situation, both one operational perspective, two and public relation perspective. So we want to remember that operations is the day-to-day functions, and that is the purpose of regenerating more and more profits. The goals in particular operations is through efficiencies, keeping the costs low, and effectiveness, so making the customer more satisfied. Through this visual I have here is through a recommendation of an incident response plan. So these are the different steps that are needed, just like this diagram shows. So the first step is the preparation step. So that is we can prepare through practice case situations where someone might be also in a similar situation. This can help to really minimize our conflict that might have been in a result of someone who might have a similar situation. The second step we have is identification. So we need to identify what type of situation this is, and we can apply to based on the practice scenarios that we have. The third step is containment, so that we want to contain this problem and try not to make it a huge outburst. So just like the public article has been published, we want to reach out to the consumer as fast as possible so that they ensure that we realize this, how important this important issue is to us and also to them. The fourth step we have is the eradicate. So we want to minimize this problem as much as possible, try to make it as low profile and try to minimize this issue as much as possible. And the second last step is the recovery stage. So now we want to go back to recovering and going back to the normal level of operations. And lastly, we have is the lesson learned step. So the lessons learned is where we're going to reevaluate what we have done, what we have come up with, what was something that was good, and what we need to do is to improve for future situations. So now we've talked about the operations standpoint, we can also talk about in a public relations of an action plan. So it's important that we have these conflicts are now going to take into reality. So it's important that public relations have this mindset that this is important, everything is important, because whatever the case is, it's important to think of something that is emphasized as something really dearly important so that people realize how important that we recognize these situations. So it's very good for the PRs to early identify these issues, and that is through training. So for example, I have a diagram here. I like to call it the balloon diagrams, where all the ways that we can identify issues as early as possible. So the first balloon we have here is the media trust. So we want to make sure that we have the trust of the media, communicating them to always to ensure what is happening through our company and try to reach out to other people as much as fast as possible so that we can try to minimize the conflict as low as possible. The second balloon we have is ongoing communication. So we want to communicate ongoingly through employees and consumers. And the third balloon is awareness. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware of the situation. So it's important to pop all of these balloons so that everyone meets and their needs and satisfaction. So in regards to answering one of your questions about what would happen if the article changes animal protein to title, and that is easily could be referred back to our OPR protocol solution as it's something very applicable, and that is to maintain good public relations and offer daily inspections. So that sums up to what I will be explaining about and through how you can also implement this solution of the OPR protocol. Thank you, and I hope to hear you from soon.